Alright, hello and welcome to what is surprisingly now my second channel, I guess. I didn't initially create this channel like recently. This is a channel that I've had for probably the better part of like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years. Basically ever since I left high school. I initially used this channel for vlogging, but I've kind of left it inactive for a while. But I finally found a good use for it. So recently, like, you know, when I'm not like working on content, basically, I am always like playing games or just consuming some kind of media just like the rest of you guys. And usually there's like a lot I have to say and talk about like certain games that I play, especially those that I really like. And I couldn't really find like a cool outlet for that. Sometimes I talk about that stuff on streams like here and there. But I never thought this kind of stuff was like fitting for the main channel, like since it's mostly like racing themed and racing related, everything is edited, everything, you know, tries to be a good video. And I kind of wanted to just have an outlet where I can just kind of like talk about what I just want to like, you know, talk about. So yeah, on this channel I don't even give a shit about views, or I don't even care if I can get this channel part or not. I really just want to use this channel to just like go on like these super like long-winded talks about things that maybe like 10 of you care about at best. So yeah, I figured now's a great time to start, because today, actually just like I think like a little bit more than an hour ago, the Persona 3 remake that was already rumored to be in development for a little while now actually has actually leaked. There were actually 2 trailers that leaked in terms of Persona. So there was also some kind of like Persona 5 spin-off that also leaked, but I do not have the capacity to care about that right now in the slightest, because obviously the big one is a remake to what is probably one of the most beloved JRPGs of all time. To just quickly like go back for the people that may not necessarily be familiar with it, with the original game, or maybe Persona in general. So Persona is a JRPG series that has been popular for quite a while. You know, you probably know about the hype that Persona 5 had, and yeah, I'm obviously a huge fan of the franchise, to the point where I actually did a cosplay on Persona 5. So I cosplayed the main character Joker in there. So it's a franchise that is very dear to my heart. Although I have to admit, for the longest time, I only played Persona 5. That was actually the only game that I ever played. Until this year. So this year, I actually said, okay, you know what? Let's actually get into this franchise proper and explore some of the other titles. And the one that I started with was Persona 3. So Persona 3 was always a bit of a problem child, because Persona 3 first of all, never really had like a definitive version. Like there were different versions of what is essentially the same game that had benefits and, you know, lacked a few things, if you will. And in general, you know, it wasn't really like super accessible prior, and it just was kind of like, you know, a diamond in the rough is I guess the best way I can put it. I played it through a PlayStation 2 emulator, so I played the FES re-release, which is basically the original game that also released on the PlayStation 2, but just with a lot more content. Now, on Steam, there was a release of Persona 3 Portable, which was the PlayStation Portable version of Persona 3, which was a little bit different. It took a few things out, like actually like physically moving around in like, you know, the city and the school and whatnot. It was like more visual novel based. I haven't played it, I gotta admit, so take everything that I say about Portable with like a grain of salt. But it had a few other improvements. It also had the option to play with the second protagonist, who was female, who had like her own set of story events, if you will. And yeah, you know, it was always like a bit of a problem to recommend Persona 3 definitively to anybody, because it's like, well, do you want to walk around the open world? Do you want to have like an epilogue after the story, or play FES? Do you want better gameplay? Do you want a female character? Well, then play Portable. There was never really like a definitive version for any of these games, which is why a lot of people really asked for a remake for like a super long time. And it was something that kind of like bit by bit got kind of like leaked, if you will. So there was like a whole bunch of overlapping evidence that a Persona 3 remake was in development, or is in development, and was about to be shown very soon. So there was a bunch of stuff with like websites, website IPs getting updated. There was like a short clip that leaked that looked a little bit too legit to be fake, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I was definitely in the camp hopium. Like I was a believer. I was a certified believer in the Persona 3 remake, and yeah, lo and behold, now we know the answer, that it actually was 100% real, and it is real, and it is in development, and it is coming. I thought it looked fantastic. So you know, since I played the original super recently, I played it I think in January, like around December last year. January, February is where I finished around about. So I have like basically zero nostalgia goggles when it comes to this game. I could absolutely see that this game was something special, even despite the issues that it had. So to just kind of like give like a quick rundown of like a few issues that Persona 3 had. The gameplay, at least on the FES side, was pretty rough. There were some issues with skills that being really transferable from one persona to another one when you fuse new personas, basically. So that was an issue. Then there was an issue with, you know, sometimes in the game, since it is based on an in-game calendar, there is just not really much to do in certain points of the game. So evenings, at a certain point, there isn't much point to them anymore. Also, the entirety of December, there's basically not much to do. You can argue about that it has, you know, significance with the story. But matter of fact is, like, gameplay wasn't perfect, which makes sense because Persona 3 was something new. It was an experiment for Atlas, and a really important one too, because it actually saved the company from bankruptcy. But it is also like a really important game in the company's history. But even beyond that, there were some issues with like some characters and stories. There were some characters that weren't super fleshed out, in my opinion. So those of you who played the game or are at least familiar with Persona 3, you know, Ikutsuki, Straga, or like the Straga group, those just weren't as fleshed out as they probably should have been. A remake basically coming in and trying to just be this, like, you know, this version of Persona 3 that is as good as it can get is fantastic news, because once you like get rid of all the BS that Persona 3 has, I think it can genuinely be one of the most affecting game experiences you can have. Like, it had such a profound effect on me as a person for like quite a while. That's really hard to match by any game, right? There's a bunch of games I would rather take for Persona, you know, before taking Persona 3. But I can't deny that it had like a massive effect on me as a person. And it is genuinely something special that's sadly just kind of like bogged down by a whole bunch of nonsense that a remake could absolutely clean up. I thought the remake, you know, it was like a 1-minute gameplay edit, which is great. It's probably the best way to showcase any game. And I thought it looked fantastic. The visuals look great. The environments look almost like just like in the original, but just like a little bit better, you know, with like slightly better lighting. One thing that really struck me that I really liked was how populated the area, all the areas are now. Because the island you are on, I actually forgot what the name of the island was, of the like what the location was even called. But it is actually like supposed to be a fairly populated island. Like, you know, there's supposed to be like a, you know, you go to this like huge massive school, but none of that really ever came across due to just the limitations of the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation Portable. Like, you never felt you were in this like huge bustling space. But now it does. Now it actually does. Like the school, there was like a couple shots of the protagonist going through school. It felt massive. Like, there were people walking around. It felt so much more lively. It was fantastic to see. And yeah, beyond that, there were a few things that stood out to me. So there was like one event that I don't quite remember. So at some point, it seemed like the protagonist was kind of like cooking with Yukari, who's like a party member, if you will. I don't remember any of that, so that seems like it's like some kind of like new event. Maybe part of her social link. I don't know. We can't really say for sure, but it seems like they definitely added like new events of sorts, which is also great. I think especially like the social links of the main party members, I feel like weren't fleshed out enough. Like, you could sum up the social links of the party members with like half the amount of days required to like meet them. So yeah, I'm glad that it seems like they seem to add more meat there to these social links. And yeah, like a bunch of stuff that I, you know, don't feel like going into. The gameplay looked so much more like smooth. The menus looked fantastic. It looks all around great. So yeah, I'm super excited, so super happy that this even exists, you know, and especially now having played the original, I feel like I can appreciate this a lot more. However, there are a bunch of people that seemingly are never happy, because of course, like if you look at Reddit and Twitter, you'll find like a whole bunch of people bitching and moaning and complaining that, where's this, or this looks crap, or this looks too much like this, you know. So to basically just go into a little bit more detail, I tried to not make this like a super long rant, but I feel like it's something that's important to talk about, and it's something that I don't really hear anyone say. And it's also like a big reason why I was motivated to even create this channel, so I can just talk about this. Okay, so as I said earlier, there were a bunch of different versions of Persona 3, and they all offered something different. Now, in the case of the portable version had a second protagonist that was female, and that female protagonist came with a different personality, different responses, even different like characters you can meet, different social links, whole variety of different stuff. And it is now seeming like that won't be included in the remake. Now, at first glance, this might seem like it sucks because it doesn't actually solve the underlying issue that Persona 3 always had, which is that there wasn't a definitive edition that just had everything. Now, I thought about this, and initially I was also in the camp of, yeah, why, you know, if this is missing, fuck this, you know. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I don't think I actually want the female protagonist in the remake, which, you know, it's kind of tough. It's actually surprising for me to think this because I never experienced it, and I would love to experience the female protagonist without having to play portable, like the portable version. And the reason why I think this is because you gotta remember, everything in game development takes time, right? Game developers, they can't just magically make things happen. They don't have an infinite supply of resources, budget, they don't have infinite amounts of time. So they have to prioritize certain things. Honestly, in my opinion, if there is limited budget and limited time, what I would want them to do is just make the core experience as good as possible with one protagonist. That is what I would want. I wouldn't want basically two different storylines that are both kind of whatever and basically the same as in the original. I want one storyline this time that is really good and better than anything we've seen before. One that has more to do, so more activities, more story, maybe more social links, or just generally better social links with better events. You know, I want more background story on a few characters that were lacking it. I just want more meat on the base game, right? That, in my opinion, is so much more important than the female protagonist or even the epilogue, which for all we know might be DLC or might not be in the game at all. Like, just having the base experience be as good as it can possibly get is a huge win for me. Especially because you also gotta remember, Portable is now buyable anywhere. You know, Atlas re-released Portable for better or for worse with the issues that it came with. But it is now available anywhere. If you want the female route, it is there. You can get it, right? It's not running away from you. It's not inaccessible, right? And, you know, as I said earlier, like, I'd rather just have one route with the main, you know, male protagonist that is really damn good and has so much stuff added to it. Especially and I'll try to talk about this in a non-spoilery way for the people that haven't played Persona 3. The main protagonist actually isn't like as much of a blank slate as in like other JRPGs, but he actually does play a central role in the story. How should I put this? I don't think I can talk about this too much without spoilers. But he has certain circumstances that make him very important, especially near the end. And considering how, like, not fleshed out the main character really was, at least compared to, like, Persona 4, for example, where I feel like the main character had a lot more character, but less involvement somehow. I really want them to just, like, take this male main character now and really flesh him out, give him more personality, give him more strong character moments, basically, right? So that's, in my opinion, what matters most. I just want the base experience to be as good as it can be. And in regards to the rest of the game, it seems like people just want this to be as identical to the original game as possible. Like, it feels like a lot of people are like very, very allergic to changes or additions that may not necessarily, like, you know, align with their vision of what Persona 3 is or was at the time. One reason or one part where I can kind of get this is that it feels a lot like Persona 5 just based on the gameplay. So just the way the characters look, the way the menus are styled, and to a certain degree, I can agree. Like, I think the menus look really good, really super stylized, but I feel like they kind of miss this, like, weird, rough digital style that the original had. It's hard to describe. You kind of have to experience it yourself. but it all feels a lot more slick, like in Persona 5. And slickness is not really something I would associate with Persona 3 in terms of style, right? So that's like one part where I can kind of agree. But people were already getting pissed. Oh, this looks different than the original. Where's female protagonist? Where's this? Where's this? And I think one thing that these people just don't really realize, or let me put it in a different way. I think these people just generally don't play remakes. Because I've played a bunch of remakes by now. You know, primarily what comes to mind is the Resident Evil remakes. I played pretty much all of them that exist at the moment. And what I like so much about the Resident Evil remakes, especially the recent one about Resident Evil 4, was that it was so different. Like, you know, I did also play the original Resident Evil 4 before the remake, and I actually finished it today. Like the remake I did finish like just a couple hours ago. And I went out of the experience absolutely loving it, because it was such a fresh experience. They changed up so many things, little gameplay things obviously, but also rewrote the story in a little, you know, in little ways, made certain characters act a little bit differently, so that it felt like a completely fresh experience, and I honestly loved it. Like, you know, especially because when you do that, it doesn't invalidate the original, because that's also something that I don't want. I don't want the Persona 3 remake to invalidate Portable. Like, I don't want to tell people, oh, don't play Portable, don't play the original, just play the remake. You know, I feel like that just kind of like devalues the old games, which kind of blows, right? Like, I want the remake to be a little bit more original. I want it to come up with new ideas, original ideas, add new content, maybe change a few things up here and there. As long as like the integrity of the game isn't like affected too much, I think that is perfectly valid. And I think that's something that I feel like a lot of Persona fans probably need to understand. It's kind of hard to say this, but yeah, I've seen a lot of takes where people were like, if this game is not exactly like I remember it, you know, I'm not buying it. And I think that's not a good take to have, because I mean, if it is the exact same as the original, but just with better graphics, you're not gonna play it, because you have already played it, right? Like, where's the fun in that? At that point, you're just playing the same game, but with prettier graphics. Where's the point? Like, I don't think that should be the point of remakes. Like, I feel like a good remake expands on the ideas presented in the original, you know, and changes a few things up so that it feels fresh for everyone. And that's what I want to see. That's something that I really want to see. Alright, I think I've ranted enough about the Persona 3 remake. If you can't tell, I'm super excited for this, super hyped. And I'm also really excited about this channel. As I said, I don't really care how videos do here. I'll probably just do some light editing here and there, maybe add some clips or whatever. But yeah, I'm excited to just kind of like talk about other games. I also have a lot to talk about about the Resident Evil 4 remake, which I, you know, talked about just now. Maybe I'll do another video on that, we'll see, or just other games that I'm interested in and want to talk about. We'll see. If you want me to if you want to listen to me talk about more games that aren't racing, then yeah, feel free to subscribe. I'll upload whenever I feel like I have something of value to say. Anyways, that's about it from me for now. Thanks for joining, and yeah, can't wait for the Persona remake. It looks fantastic. Cheers.